All right, today we're jumping into Jane Austen's classic, Sense and Sensibility, to unpack a question that, let's be honest, is just as real today as it was 200 years ago.
So let me ask you this, because we've all been there. When you're facing a huge decision, what do you trust? Your head, with all its cold, hard logic, or your heart, with that passionate gut feeling? Well, it turns out Jane Austen was obsessed with this very same question, and she turned it into this incredible, unforgettable story about two sisters who are the living embodiment of these two different approaches to life. So, she sets up this epic showdown between two big ideas. On one side, you've got sense. That's all about your brain, right? Reason, judgment, keeping a cool head. And on the other side, you've got sensibility, and that is all heart. We're talking raw emotion, passion, going with your gut. This tension, this is the engine that drives the entire story.
Okay, so first up, let's actually meet the sisters who bring these ideas to life.
First, we have the older sister, Elinor Dashwood, and she is team sense all the way. The book says she has a coolness of judgment. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean she's a robot. Austen makes it super clear that her feelings run deep, but, and this is the key, she knows how to govern them. For Elinor, it's all about responsibility and protecting her family, even if it means bearing her own pain.
And then you've got Marianne. She is the complete opposite, the poster child for sensibility. The book says her sorrows, her joys could have no moderation. I love that. For Marianne, if you're not expressing what you feel, you're basically a hypocrite. She believes life is meant to be lived out loud, you know? And she couldn't care less about all the prim and proper rules of society.
But here's the thing. To really get why these sisters make the choices they do, we have to understand the world they're trapped in. And trust me, it was not an easy world for women.
So the whole story gets kicked off because of this one really frustrating legal rule called entailment. Basically, it meant that their family home, this huge estate, couldn't be passed down to them. Nope. It had to go to the closest male relative. So when their father dies, the house, the money, everything, it goes to their half-brother from a previous marriage. And just like that, the Dashwood women are left with pretty much nothing.
And this really drives home just how bad it was. They go from being wealthy and comfortable to having to survive on just 500 pounds a year. In their world, that was a social death sentence. It meant their only real hope for a future was to marry someone with money. The stakes could not be higher.
And this is where it gets kind of tragic and also a little darkly funny. On his deathbed, their father makes their brother John promise to take care of them. John's initial plan? Give them 3,000 pounds, a life-changing amount. But then his wife, Fanny, gets in his ear. Oh, but what about our dear little boy? And you can just watch this promise get whittled down to nothing. It goes from 3,000 pounds to maybe an annuity to, well, maybe we'll just help them move their furniture. In the end, this grand promise dissolves into sending them the occasional present of fish and game. It's an incredible look at how easily good intentions get crushed by greed.
So, you've got these two sisters, polar opposites, in a really tough spot where marriage is basically their only career option. Let's see how their different approaches to life and love play out.
This chart really lays it all out, doesn't it? For Elinor, love is something you build. It's based on respect, on shared values. It takes time. For Marianne, no way. It's got to be like a lightning strike, an instant, perfect connection. And when it comes to showing how you feel, Elinor thinks keeping it together is a sign of strength. Marianne thinks that's just being dishonest. They are playing two completely different games.
And you can hear it right in Marianne's own words. She says her perfect man must enter into all my feelings. The same books, the same music must charm us both. See, it's not about finding a partner, it's about finding a mirror image of herself. It's a beautiful ideal, but man, is it a fragile one.
Now, contrast that with Elinor talking about the guy she likes, Edward Ferrars. She says, I greatly esteem that I like him. I mean, to Marianne, that sounds so bland, so cold-hearted. But for Elinor, that word esteem is everything. It's her head giving her heart the green light. It's the solid foundation she needs. Okay, so we have these two very different philosophies about love. But what happens when these ideals slam headfirst into the cold, hard realities of the world?
Well, Marianne thinks she's found her soulmate in this super charming guy, John Willoughby. He's good-looking, he's suave, he loves all the same things she does. Their romance is just a blur of passion. It's sensibility in action. It seems perfect.
But there's one thing they didn't count on: money.
And then she gets this letter, and it is just brutal. Willoughby, who needs cash, has decided to ditch Marianne and marry a super-rich heiress instead. And look at the language he uses. "I am sorry if I have been misunderstood." Misunderstood? He completely erases everything that happened between them. It's a cold, calculated business decision, and it shatters her world.
For Marianne, this is where her philosophy completely fails her. She doesn't just get sad, she completely falls apart. She lets her grief consume her so much that she literally gets sick, almost dies from it. Because she lived with her heart completely unguarded, she had absolutely no defense when it got broken.
But here is the incredible twist. While all of this is happening with Marianne out in the open, Elinor is going through her own private hell. She finds out that Edward, the man she loves, has been secretly engaged to another woman for the past 4 years. Think about that. The betrayal is just as bad, maybe even worse. But because she's Elinor, because of her sense, she swallows all that pain and keeps it a complete secret so she doesn't add to her family's suffering.
So who got it right, Elinor or Marianne? Well, the genius of the novel is that it doesn't really pick a side. Instead, it shows us that both of these extremes have a serious, serious downside.
Let's just break down the cost here. Elinor's sense bought her a lot of dignity, yeah. But she paid for it with silent, repressed agony. And Marianne's sensibility, it was honest for sure, but it led directly to public humiliation and almost cost her life. Neither one is a clear winner.
In the end, they both do find happiness. But, and this is the whole point, only after they learn a crucial lesson from each other. Marianne learns that passion needs a little bit of common sense. And Elinor? Well, Elinor finally learns that it's okay to let her feelings out, that her strength doesn't mean she has to suffer all alone.
And that's really the big idea of the whole book. Austen is basically saying that you need both. Your emotions, your heart, needs reason to keep it from flying off the rails. And your reason, your head, needs emotion to keep it from becoming cold and, well, lifeless.
And that's why this story still feels so relevant. It brings us right back to that question we started with. The challenge isn't about choosing your head or your heart. The real work in our own lives is figuring out how to get them to listen to each other. So I'll give you with this. How do you find that balance?